Hello, my dear curious friend, and welcome to another episode of the Curious Pavel podcast sessions. In this episode, we are going to travel. What a surprise, eh? But when I say travel, I mean super duper travel, because I'm going to meet you with a couple from England that went to live in Spain and then decided to drive around almost every country in Europe. The main focus of this episode is Maribor, but we didn't only talk about Maribor, we didn't only talk about Slovenia, but we talked about Balkan countries in general, and what you can see, what you can do there, what to see in Slovenia, how warm or are they actually warm, these Balkan people? A lot of interesting, curious facts to learn from this episode, so let's dive in today's episode of the Curious Pavel podcast sessions. Hello, welcome to another episode. I'm welcoming here Al and Lian. Oh, I'm so excited, guys. Now, before we begin, as usual, this is another, first of all, congratulations, because you are the first people to actually be two people and not just one person. This is a step up in the podcast sessions. And again, I have never met you. We found each other on Instagram, and I'm super excited to hear about the place we're gonna talk about. But first, I'm maybe a bit more excited because I love people's stories. I'm more excited to hear about you. What is your story? Where are you coming from? Where are you living now? And all these curious bits and pieces you would like to add so we can learn more about you. Go on, share something with us.
Sure. Well, I'm Leanne.
And I'm Al.
And we're from the UK. We met in Manchester, where we lived for 10 years together. And then about 6 months after we got married.
2012, 2013, wasn't it?
Whoa, 6 months. So wait, you met and then 6 months later you got married?
Oh, no.
No, sorry. So we met in Manchester. We lived there for about 10 years. We got married after about 5. And then about 6 months after that, we decided to move to Spain. So we did.
Yeah, so we moved to Malaga and we were there for about 5 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
And in fact, we probably would have still be there now if something hadn't happened. Do you remember the landlord?
Yeah, well, there was a few things. So we had a beautiful house in in the Axarquía region of Malaga, very country, very lovely, very isolated. And then our landlord decided to convert the basement into his own flat. So we were like, kind of takes away from the country living feel. And then within the same week, Brexit happened. So we were kind of like, well, if we want to travel Europe, which we'd always wanted to do, we kind of thought the time is now. So this was in the June, and by the 1st September, which was also weirdly our wedding anniversary, we left and we hit the road. So that was, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
2017, September.
Going ever since.
2017.
Yeah, we can't believe how far Brexit is behind us. It feels like last week.
I know.
Times just flies in a crazy matter. It's so funny because I met my girl. I went to work in Mallorca, and this is where I met my girlfriend. And then we came to UK. That was about 5.5 years ago. And then we're still, we like UK, but not to that extent. We're still thinking to go back to Spain at some point. And we went to visit. We made a tour of Sevilla and Malaga, and it was really lovely. It was the first time I visited Andalusia. Really lovely. To me, Sevilla is a bit nicer. I don't know what you guys feel. I like the sea. I like the sea. Yes, Malaga, beautiful sea. Well done. But Sevilla had a slightly different, maybe because it wasn't that touristy to me. There are more locals there, and the vibe was a bit more chilled. Maybe that's what came into me. But what do you guys think? I suppose for 5 years you visited Sevilla.
We've had many an argument, usually over a glass of wine, over whether Malaga, Sevilla, or Granada is the best city in Andalusia. We love them all. I think you're right. Sevilla has definitely much more laid back, very cool, fashionable vibe to it. Whereas I think Malaga is a little bit more rough, ready party town. Still beautiful, as you say, with the coast, but it's got a bit more grit about it, I guess, which we actually like as a city, don't we? But then you've got Granada, which is like this beautiful mash of the two. So
We
I
wanted
don't
Granada
know.
and Cordoba as well, but didn't have the time. So maybe next time.
Yeah. Next time Granada, and I'm pretty sure you might change your mind on what your favourite city is.
Yes. Granada's now our favourite city, I think.
Oh, is
well.
it? Oh, so definitely
think so.
And Cordoba as well?
Do you know, we've only been for a couple of days, and we made the really bad decision to go in summer where it's basically on fire. I think it was like 45 degrees, 38 at night. It was just uncomfortable. So I don't think we have a lot
It was
to say
unfair,
about
really,
Cordoba.
to judge it on what we did, I think.
All right.
But yes, beautiful cities, some great
Yeah.
history. You're into history, Pavel, aren't you? And
Yes,
some
I am.
Fantastic history. You literally turn a corner and there's stuff that's like 2,000 years old. It's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely need to go there. Okay, so you left, you travel. Where do you travel and where do you live now?
So we started in Europe. We started in Portugal and then northern Spain. Then we went over to Central Europe, the Balkans, Bulgaria, Romania. That was kind of our first leg, wasn't it? And then went back to the UK for Christmas and then spent 3 months in Southeast Asia. So we did Thailand and Myanmar and
Vietnam and Laos
and Cambodia.
Wow.
And then we came back and then we did another leg of Europe last year. So we did a bit more of Spain, Italy.
We also did Albania, Macedonia, some parts of Greece, northern Greece. We drove because we drive. So we literally there's us two and our dog and everything in the back of our car that we own. And so we just drive around to Airbnb. So we've driven on. I think we've driven in every country in Europe apart from 6. I think, is that right? Or 7?
Yeah, Scandinavia. Wow. We've only been to Denmark so far. So
and Sweden.
It. Oh yeah.
There's so many you keep losing track on them.
But to be fair, to answer your question, we are currently in Croatia, near the Dalmatian coast, near Split.
Yeah, we spent our lockdown in Lithuania. So our plan was to kind of do the northern coast and work our way down south. And yeah, it was in Vilnius in Lithuania where we got stuck for 4.5 months. So, which isn't a bad place to be stuck. They dealt with it really well. But yeah, the minute the borders opened, we headed south and found ourselves in Croatia.
All right. So why did we? So I suppose to Asia you didn't drive, but you flew.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So why did you choose the Balkans to visit? Is it because you just want to go all Europe, or is there something else?
Our ambition was to go to every country in Europe before Brexit happened. That was our kind of aim. Didn't quite.
Well, we would have been on track, I think.
We would have been.
We're going to go through Ukraine. We were going to go into Belarus for a little bit, coming down from Lithuania. So we would have done it if we hadn't if COVID hadn't come along and we've been stranded in Vilnius. So we would have just about done it, apart from the little ones like San Marino and Liechtenstein and.
Yes, yeah, we need to tick those off. But in terms of the Balkans, I think it was just a place that we'd heard of and had no real preconceptions of beyond it maybe unfairly thinking it might be a bit scary because we'd never really been to kind of Central and Eastern Europe before. But the minute we first got there, I think we went to Slovenia first, then basically worked our way all the way across to Bulgaria. We fell in love with every single one of them.
Absolutely, and they're so friendly, and obviously because particularly with Serbia and Macedonia, then the UK is lumped under the NATO force of just over 15 years ago. It wasn't that long ago, and we just the younger generation. They were just so lovely, so interested. English was not only widely spoken but brilliantly spoken, and almost every country has just been amazing. As long as you don't bring up politics, every country is amazing.
I think that's the same wherever you go, to be fair, though, isn't it?
True.
Yeah. In Bulgaria, we say that every Bulgarian understands politics, football, and women. These are the subjects they can talk all day about. But it really warms my heart when I see people from Western Europe or some, let's say, Americans or Canadians, some people that usually will pick destination that is, fairly popular. They'll go to Spain or they go to Paris or Amsterdam. But it warms my heart when I see people from the western side to pick the Balkans, because as you found out, they're really beautiful. You can do a
Mhm.
lot of things. You can do skiing, you can go to the beach, hiking, a lot of things. But they are just not probably well promoted, or I don't know what the reason. It's just
Mhm.
overlooked, and it really, really warms my heart. I'm really happy to know you. What is the subject we're going to be talking about? Which is the city?
Well, it's going to be a place called Maribor in northern Slovenia. It was, I think, was it our very first trip to Slovenia?
It was our first trip to Slovenia and our first Balkan country.
Yeah. And the reason we chose it is a bit weird. We called it the our first 12 months on the road, we called it the second city tour. So we avoided the capital cities and we went to the second biggest city in each country, because we're
Hmm.
from Manchester. And so we love Mancunians and Manchester, whereas London for us is a bit scary, us
Mhm.
Northerners. So we thought, well, let's go try the second city. And almost exclusively, it worked perfectly. Every
Mhm.
second city was so friendly, and I'm
Wow.
sure the first one is as well. But
Mhm.
that's how we ended up in Maribor, so we just picked it.
Wow, this
Yeah.
is such a great strategy. I never thought about this, but it's so clever. Okay, the only thing I know about Maribor is that they have football team. That's the only thing I know. So, can you tell us a bit
Yeah.
more? Well, you were driving, but do you have any intake on the airport? What is the closest connection to Maribor,
Ljubljana?
Yeah, Ljubljana is the closest, which is the
the
capital
capital?
of
Yeah.
Slovenia, and I think that's maybe 2 hour drive,
Yes, as you know,
less.
Slovenia is not massive, so it might be
No,
1.5, 2 hours drive. We actually flew out of there, in and out of there in Ljubljana,
yeah,
because
connections with Gatwick.
yeah, it was a weird one. We had to go back to the UK for something. We were in
Mhm.
Rijeka uh, in no,
Croatia.
southwest Istria of Croatia, southwest. Excuse me, and we had to fly back to the UK, and we went from Ljubljana, and it's a tiny airport, but it's well run, isn't it? It's really
Yeah,
nice.
really well run. It's I think it's about a 2 hour flight.
Mhm.
It's really easy to get to. The only difficulty is that it's because it's a small airport. It's not. There aren't many connections in. So I wonder if maybe that's sometimes as well why people from the UK don't often go to somewhere like
Mhm.
Slovenia, because unless you're in the southeast, it might actually be quite an inconvenience to get
I
there. But
see. So how much time you spent? You said that was your first trip. Does it mean you came back there, and how much time you spent in the city?
We've been there every year for 3 years, haven't we?
yeah,
The first year we spent, was it a month?
yeah,
We spent a month in Maribor. We went to Bled before that, Lake Bled before that, a month in Maribor. And we were, in fact, we were only supposed to stay, I think, for 3 weeks. And then the guy who was renting the house told us about a wine festival, which happens on the 11th of the 11th every year. I think it might be the same in Bulgaria. It's called Saint Martin, and
11th
it's
of the
where
okay.
yeah, and it's when
I'm
it's,
not
it's,
sure.
it's nothing to do with the war. I think it's just they say that 11 o'clock on the 11th day of the 11th month, then all the wine it magically turns into wine from previously just like grape juice. It magically turns into wine. Now, of course, they don't really believe that, but that's the significance of it. So it's like New Year, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's bigger than New Year. It's like the single biggest celebrated day in Slovenia or Maribor. Certainly, it's a big street party. Everything closes. It's an all day celebration.
So yes, we went back. So that was the first year. Then year two, we came back for that as well. And then
Mhm.
year three, or is this year three? We're going back.
No, year three was last
Year three
year.
was last year. So and this year we're going after this. So we'll be there for
Yeah,
another month. So there'll be
Wow.
4 years in a row going to Maribor. I love it.
Wow.
yeah,
I think you should keep a tracker, like a diary or something. These dates I was in this country, because there's so many countries, and at some points I think you're not gonna stop traveling. You're gonna keep traveling with so many countries in so many years. You're gonna start losing point. Uh,
yeah.
and then one day you can show it to your grandchildren. Look at this, all these here. I've been in these countries.
We
All right,
used to be
great. So
cool.
you've been so long in Maribor, in and out, in and out. You must know a lot of it. So, what can we see in Maribor?
Well, I think Maribor, first and foremost, is a really beautiful, traditional Slovenian city. The architecture is very traditional. It's very the old town is perfectly formed, isn't it? So even just as if anyone likes a city break type thing, so places like Prague or I don't know, like Wroclaw, or if you like a European old town, then that's good to go. I would always recommend to go in the autumn because it's the most beautiful autumnal place. It just, the whole place seems to turn orange. So I think the old town first of all.
And then there's lots of wine grown. There's a lot of Slovenian wine comes from around Maribor. And in fact, if you walk out of Maribor, the city centre itself, then you'll see a hill behind with a church on it. And on the side of that hill is just grapevines. And you can go and you can buy the wine coming from that hill, which is supposed to be quite special. So you can go and buy that. So there's a lot of wine and a lot of wine growers around there, and it's widely known as some of the best. And in fact, there's sometimes there's some better. Well, in our opinion, there's some better German grape wine in Slovenia than there is in Germany, because it's only how far is it from Austria?
Oh, it's like a 15-minute drive from the Austrian border. It must only be about 20 kilometers maybe.
So it's so close to Austria and Germany, yet some of the wines there are amazing. So, but if you're not into wines, then there's definitely architecture. They have a lot in terms of food. They have a lot of there's first time we ever tried Bosnian food was in Maribor. And of course, because I'm a bit older, I think, than you two, but I remember we know both remember the Bosnian War, but I remember it being a little bit older and hearing it being quite a frightening. Well, it obviously was a very frightening thing. So therefore, in my head, I'd thought Bosnia was a frightening place. Now, when we went there, it was totally the opposite. It was the most amazing place that we've ever been. But there was a lot of Bosnians who settled in Slovenia, and so there's a bit of Bosnian culture with the food, which is amazing.
It's a bit of a melting pot, Slovenia, for food, isn't it? Because it's the most westernized of the kind of former Yugoslavian states, and it borders Italy and Austria, so it's very influenced by that. So it's things like pasta dishes are quite common in Slovenian cuisine, as are, I think, quite German type sausages, as are the kind of more Serbian Croatian cevapi. I leave them to fight that out. If anyone who is Serbian or Croatian is listening, you'll know what I mean. You fight out. And then I guess, I don't know, what else is there?
Well, there's the oldest vine in Europe.
Oh, is it? But that's our curious fact.
It's a great fact. So it's the oldest known vine in Europe, and they built it grows up against the actual it's now, I'm guessing, the wine sort of museum. I'm guessing it wasn't always that. So they built the wine museum in the building behind it, and so you can go in there and you can actually buy the wine from that, but apparently it's not great.
No, because it's so old. It's it doesn't produce a great wine anymore. But that building with the grapevine on, which is 800-900 years old, is now the wine museum, where you can take a tour of kind of how wine started as part of their culture. But you can also do tastings there. So they have like lots of different wines from all across Slovenia, not just in Maribor, where you can do tastings.
In fact, it was there that we met our friend Igor. He's now our best one of our best Slovenian friends, and Igor's a little older than us, and he plays the piano. He's like one of these creative geniuses, because he plays the piano, he can draw, he can paint. He did the mosaic floor in this place, and we went in there for a wine tasting. It was Macedonia versus Slovenia. Is that right?
Yes, they called it a wine duel. So as part of the wine festival every November, they have the main celebration on the 11th of November. But in the week leading up to that, they have lots of different events, from talks to tastings to dances. So we went to what they called a wine duel, and it was Slovenia versus Macedonia.
So they had Macedonian growers there, they had Slovenians, and we just turned up thinking we might just be able to sit down and try some wine. And it was ticket only, so the woman was a little bit disturbed. She went, "Oh well, let me just put you over here on this chair next to this grumpy, slightly older gentleman who just looked at us as if we just interrupted and ruined his entire night." Anyway, so after about maybe 15 minutes of grunting at each other, then he discovered that you were from Wales. Well, you've got Irish roots, I've got Scottish roots, and he's like, "Oh, Celtic!" And then we're best friends, and we literally are best friends now. We see him every time we go to Slovenia, and in fact, he used it was Leanne's birthday last year. It's her birthday every year, but it was birthday when we were in Maribor, and he used the grape juice from the oldest vine to draw the picture of the outside of the museum on a little sort of frame and gave it to Leanne as a birthday present. So we have a
Well,
lot.
do you have this now?
Not.
Yeah, somewhere.
Tell you what we can do. We can send you a picture
Yeah,
of
we'll
it.
send you
Excellent.
a picture of it. It's
Ooh,
somewhere around.
I'm so curious to see that. Okay, so you said there was Slovenia versus Macedonia. So was this that particular year, and then the next year they have Slovenia versus Serbia, or they're in the same festival? There are other countries that are competing against each other, or how is this working?
I think on that, the program changes every year, but I think on that year, I think there was 3 duels, so it involved all of the countries of the former Yugoslavia. Yeah, so but it changes every year. They didn't have them last year. They had other events happening.
All right, so something
But
new
yeah.
happening every year.
Yeah.
So just because you were 1 year, that doesn't mean you should not come back the next year, because probably there will be
100%.
something different. All right. So you mentioned that Maribor is how would you say Maribor is similar to any other city that, because you've seen a lot of cities, any other city that is more popular? Like, as you said, Prague. Is it Prague, or is there any difference to other cities? What do you think?
There is a little bit of Prague. It's, if anyone's been to Ljubljana, it's a small city, so there are similarities there. But in terms of the architecture, because we don't know much about architecture, like someone says Gothic to us, and we're like, I'm not really sure what that means. But in terms of the architecture, it's basically Central European. So you could be in Austria, you could be in Hungary. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it is. So you can see influences of places like, what's the city in Romania? Brasov.
Oh, Brasov.
Which is a little bit more famous.
Uh-huh.
But there are lots of terracotta roofs. But then it's also true of lots of other places. But yeah, sandstone, white buildings, terracotta roofs, turrets.
Yeah.
Cobbled stones.
And then very modern houses, because obviously of the last sort of 100 years, the influence from Germany and Austria, I'm guessing in the house building means, is very economical. No, what do I mean? When it's good for keeping warm in. Ecological, that kind of thing, buildings, and there's quite smart looking new buildings. So it is. It's kind of a
probably
hodgepodge.
You hear me from Zencaster,
yeah,
but you
I wouldn't
froze on
say
Zoom.
you have to go to Maribor because you have
maybe
to
see
see the
it as well.
architecture, because there's a lot of, like every city, there's some really cool bits in it. Along the waterfront, it's beautiful. Along the river, there's just these ancient towers, like maybe 50 feet diameter. All these ancient towers with spired roofs, and that is brilliant to see. But that's along the front. Then you go 2 steps back, and you're back to sort of quite modern buildings.
All right. So when you travel, then what is the thing that you pay attention to? If it's not much architecture, then what comes to your eye?
I think the reason, particularly for Slovenia, and I think for the majority of Balkan countries we've been to, is and maybe this leans into what you were saying before about you pleased when you have Western people come over, and maybe that's part of it as well, is the time and generosity of people to share with you what local culture is like, how local people live, what their traditions are, is just incomparable, I think, to any other place in Europe. I mean, to the point where in Slovenia, especially, we met Igor and we went to see him play the piano a couple of nights later. His friends were there, and I think this was on the Wednesday. By Saturday, we were having dinner with them. By the following week, we were going to their son's birthday party. It's just that we're just that want to share their stories. So I think just hearing the stories, hearing the history. Al actually has a pretty good story about getting pretty involved in the local culture.
That sounds weird. I can't think what she's talking about, and now it sounds like I'm trying to hide something. But I'll try and remember the story and maybe tell you later on. She can give me some hints. But I think mainly it's the people. I'm honestly not glossing over it. That sounds weird. So it's mainly the people, I think, and so it's the people, it's the food, it's the culture. I mean, I feel bad by saying it's the wine as well, because we do love wine and we love trying everywhere we go. We love trying wine.
If you're a wine tourist, though, you might not have considered Slovenia.
Good point.
And you should.
If you're a wine tourist, consider Bosnia as well. Bosnia's got some of the best wines.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. The people, yeah.
Would you
So
consider
wine,
it
people, food.
wine, people, food? Okay. It's really amazing to me. I love you even more, because you're not traveling just to take the picture, but you're traveling to the people. And as at the beginning, I said that I'm more interested to hear your story rather than just like talk about the place. I mean, I'm interested in that as well, but I'm really happy when I'm meeting people's people. Like, you want to engage, you want to experience the new country and city and culture through the people. And this is truly, truly amazing. I'm getting goosebumps now, to be fair. I'm getting goosebumps. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the food, because you said the food is influenced, and then I'm gonna ask you about some traditions if you can share, and then we go to stories. But first, about the food and the drink. You said that the food is influenced by the neighbors of the country, Italy, Germany, Austria. So what about, is there a food that you think you see this food that this is Slovenian?
Oh, that's a good question.
There's one I can think of, and I don't know whether it's Slovenian. It's called langosh.
Okay. Langosh, no, langosh is Hungarian.
Right, and it's a deep fried batter.
Yeah.
Well, we first had it in Slovenia, and I mean, we love garlic anyway, but garlic and cheese and langosh was so whenever I think of Slovenia, I always think of that. But then when we were in Bled, we did try it was weird because we tried goulash for the first time, which I think is Hungarian, isn't it?
I think as well. Yeah. Not sure.
And that was, again, we're like, oh, is this Slovenian? Like, no, this is from Hungary. And then they said, here's some cevapi. And then we'll go, well, what's cevapi? Well, cevapi, and that comes from, I think, a bit further east.
Yeah. Well, of course, because Slovenia was, right in the heart of the Austrian-Hungarian border, wasn't it? Kind of as time goes back. So the influences there, I think, are pretty strong. The only thing I can think of is that they have is one thing that just is Slovenia for me is pumpkin.
Yes.
Pumpkin.
So whether it be pumpkin, but not just necessarily like the flesh of the pumpkin, like pumpkin seeds are like the snack of choice in any bar or cafe that you go into in Slovenia. Pumpkin oil is on every salad. It's served with bread, and I think I don't think we'd had it until we went to Slovenia. But yeah, pumpkins, I think, is what I think is synonymous with Slovenia.
And I think also fish. I mean, obviously they're very, very big on fish. And we went to meet our friends on the day we were leaving. I think, was it the day we were leaving?
Mm-hmm.
Last time, and we met them at 9 o'clock outside the market. And we met this big guy who was just like, right, now I'm going to show you, I'm going to buy you this and I'm going to buy you that. And he went off, like in a nice way. And he went off and he brought us back huge plates of fried fish and then glasses of red wine and white wine. And we're like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's like, oh, it's fine. It's
we're
Saturday.
Driving to Prague after this.
It seems to me that rather than one particular dish, which I know the people from Slovenia can be screaming at us while they're listening to us.
Because they have lots of cheeses and cured meats and that type of thing, don't they? Like every... like Italy has
cheeses and cured meats.
Exactly. Everyone has their own version.
Yes. So I'm sorry, we should have done a bit more research on that, but we can't tell you the only dish we can tell you is from Hungary.
But I think that's the point. It's a melting pot of cuisines. It's fusion. It's influences. It's interesting food. I'm not sure I've been anywhere I've had a pasta dish with German sausage in it, and it's been really good.
Maybe that's the charm. So they don't have something specific for them, but they take things from other countries and they combine them. So where else maybe you eat pasta with sausage? That's
exactly.
Did you like it, by the way?
Yeah, it was really good.
It was great.
Yeah. But this with the pumpkin, it's quite distinctive as well. I never heard of pumpkin. I mean, of course there is, but I never encountered the pumpkin oil. Never found that.
It's delicious. If you've never tried it, it's really, really good.
So dark green.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
tell
when
you
you say
what's funny is because. Go on, sorry.
sorry, when you say pumpkin oil, is like olive oil that you put on the salads. That's what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's quite a distinct flavor, isn't it? So you wouldn't use it for cooking. You'd use it as a dressing. It is really
Did
good.
you eat
It's
sweet
funny
pumpkin?
because. Did we what? Sorry.
Did you eat sweet pumpkin like a dessert?
Oh no,
Yeah, we did.
Did
We
we?
had pumpkin pie. Yeah,
Oh yeah, we did.
yeah,
Yeah, that was great.
yeah. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot
It's
of
funny
fun.
because our own meals now are almost fusion. Because when we went to Bulgaria, obviously where you're from, we had the most amazing salads, and we'd never had salads like it. Like you take a salad, you
Uh-huh.
Bulgarians take a salad, and you turn it into this amazing like
Fine dining,
banquet.
yeah, experience.
So now we have a Bulgarian style salad with Slovenian pumpkin oil drizzled over the top, and then a little bit of cheese, Parmesan cheese or something. And yeah, it's just
Uh,
Yeah, another perk of traveling so many countries, you can just pick the cuisine. Like, oh, I like this from Bulgaria, I like this from Slovenia, like, and make your own menu. Perfect.
mhm.
mhm.
And what about drinks? I would assume there is this traditional drink that is like 40% or 50% strong. Um, what's the name of it?
Um, uh, uh, well, it's essentially it's a brandy, a fruit brandy. And the reason I don't say the name is because they all have different names after different fruits. So can you remember a couple?
Well, it's rakia, isn't it? Is the sort of like the
Oh right,
general
yeah,
name, so
rakia.
general name. But then there's also things like I'm going to say this wrong. Slivovice,
Yeah,
is that
okay.
right?
Yeah,
With the
well,
plums.
we call it, well, not that we call it, but it's Slivovica, but maybe
Okay,
in Slovenia it's a bit
Yeah,
different, so it could be
yeah.
Slivovice,
so
which
it's
is
it,
made
it
out of
probably
plums.
yes,
Mm.
but it might not be called that. It might be called something slightly different. But they
Hmm.
what's really they're really big on, like a lot of Central and Eastern Europeans, is making their own.
Mm.
So you go to someone's house, then you better not bring some spirit because they'll be like, well, that's not as good as the one I make. And
Yeah,
so you'll
don't buy it from
offend
the
them by
shop.
bringing them spirits. Yeah. So they make their own wine, they make their own spirits, and quite often we'll be drinking out of like an empty Coke bottle, 2 liter Coke bottle, and
Yeah.
we don't know what we're drinking. We've no idea what percentage it is until the next morning.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when we
Yeah,
first
that's
started,
classic.
well, we first heard someone said to us that the strong spirit is a digestif, like a helps you to digest your food, and we were like, well, that
Yes.
doesn't sound right, and it really does, doesn't it?
Mm.
It's brilliant. To the point where we were in Prague, and before we went out for a meal, we'd have a little Slivovice, and then on the way back, we'd have a little one.
It was also -5 in Prague, so
That's true.
it warms the soul. But yeah, and then beer. Like I think, like any Central European country, they drink a lot of beer. Is it Union, their main
Oh
one?
yeah, there's Onion, Union, and something else. I forget what the other one is, but they tend to be more of a pilsner because I suppose
Yeah.
being next to Germany and Austria, it'd be more of a lighter pilsner. There are dark beers there. I think there are. I've had where we have a dark beer. We're like Lithuania. That's my favourite dark beer. Um,
Okay.
we got some great dark beers there.
Stay
But
stay on
yeah,
theme, huh?
sorry,
Slovenia.
sorry,
Need to stay on theme.
sorry. Forget that. Forget what I said about Lithuania. But no, it's
Playing with you.
lots of
Okay,
lots of good beer, lots of good wine.
when you and some rakia, Slivovica. So when you were in Bulgaria, I would assume you also tried rakia. Is there any difference that you find between the Slovenian and Bulgarian? Or it's roughly the same?
Not that I can remember, but the only thing that I've noticed is that, and I'm not sure whether it's a regional thing or a city thing, but they seem to have or a person thing, seem to have their favourites. So in Slovenia, it was more the pear rakia, whereas in other places, it's been more the plum.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. How does it work in Bulgaria? Is there a certain flavours that people like, or?
Yeah. Basically, you can everything, any fruit that has sugar, you can make rakia out of it. Most of it is just plums or grapes, but you can even combine them, so you can mix flavors. And then there is if you go to someone's houses that is more you know invested in that, you can find like a small winery in his cellar, like in his basement. It's like a small winery, like small cellar. This one is from 7 years ago. I keep it for your graduation. It's like a whole
Brilliant.
collection. But yeah.
Brilliant.
All right. Gustav, how about any stories that you would like to share with us? Something that happened to you.
So I think all of our stories are interconnected in Maribor around Igor. He's kind of like our kind of first friend that kind of introduces us to other friends. But one of the after we went to dinner with some of Igor's friends and we met their son Primoz, we got invited to Primoz's 40th birthday party.
So pretty much is, I think, the same age as me. Back then it was 3 years ago. And so it was his 40th birthday party, and we kind of expected it to be maybe in his house or perhaps like a few people in the pub. But he'd hired this what looked like kind of an old scout hut or something, and then there was huge big barrels of lager connected up to proper dispensing pumps. There was like a band there. There was tables.
Tents outside.
Sorry,
there's a tent outside.
tent outside. And we just walked in and we're just like, oh my God, you walk in somewhere and you're like, oh, we can handle this. And we walk in and go, oh my God, it's just full of like 65 people who we don't know, all dancing and drinking. We're like, oh my God, what have we done?
Look like those stupid English people in the corner.
We did. But then as soon as he saw us, he came running over, gave us a big hug. And then he introduced his wife, who spoke perfect English, as Primoz does.
Well, she's actually an English teacher.
Oh, is she?
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's why she's.
You don't know that?
No.
Yeah, she's an English teacher.
And then there was. Are you going to tell them about midnight?
Yeah, so everyone's super friendly. Like before we knew it, we had drinks in our hands, had been seated at a table and introduced to everybody, and yeah, they were so hospitable and lovely. And then at midnight, we just heard these really loud, like the music stopped, and we just heard these really loud bells. We were like, "What's that?" And everyone's like, "Go outside, go outside." So we went outside, and there were this like group of dancers in these huge costumes. They looked like somewhere between kind of like sheep and yetis, didn't they? Like,
Yes.
And they must have been like 12 foot tall. They were huge, and they had bells around their waist and in their hands, and they're just jumping and dancing. It was the most incredible thing. And it turned out it's a traditional Slovenian like dance that is it's used for celebrations, but it's also meant to kind of scare off evil spirits and that transition from spring to summer. So yeah, they've got a name. I have to look it up.
In Bulgaria, we call it kukeri or kukerstvo.
Oh, I think it's similar.
Yeah, similar,
Yeah, the
similar
way
to
you
that.
described it, it sounds like
Yeah.
that, yes.
Well, it's so. I mean, these are like they have the masks. Probably the same in Bulgaria. They have the masks made for each person, and you're not allowed to like. And the biggest guy there was kind of like the ringleader, and he said, and pretty much like, go on, put it on Al, put it on Al. So we've got a video of me in the whole get-up, including the mask, jumping up and down, ringing bells.
But again, they were just so excited to tell us all about it and what it meant, and they, they wanting you to literally participate in it. It's you don't get opportunities like that by just sticking to the tourist spots of a European city. You get experiences by speaking to people and really trying to understand how they live. That's travel for us.
Yeah, exactly. Every place we go, we always have these crazy stories because we'll just sit down next to people and, start talking. And because we travel with the little dog as well, that's a talking point as well sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, we just get ourselves to do all these kind of scrapes and then find these amazing people who are just great friends from thereafter and look after us. And we call them our Slovenian family because there's the Igor and all his friends have looked after us, and we just know that if we were ever in trouble and we couldn't get back to our parents, we could ring them and they'd do everything they could to fix things for us.
Beautiful people,
amazing people.
Which is true of all, Slovenia as a whole. I think, isn't it? People are so friendly. Primoz actually said that. So this is a guy whose 40th birthday it was. He said to us once, he's like, I don't understand why British people are so frightened or so like unsocial. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't think we are. I think we're quite friendly. He was like, well, no, because he lives in kind of the edge of a national park, about 5 kilometers outside Maribor. So his land borders onto the park. So he said there's one night he noticed this little tent that popped up pretty much at the end of his garden, and it was really windy and rainy, and it was horrible. So he went out with some food and drinks and was like, guys, would you like to come into my house? Would you like to stay warm? We have a spare room. And apparently, is it a British couple who were just like, no, we're fine, thank you, we're fine. And I said, I think it's just because we don't really have that. The sense of kind of communities in the UK has been somewhat eroded over the past couple of decades, and I think we're not used to, don't talk to strangers and don't take sweets from someone you don't know. And I think he just told us as a kid to, to be wary. So I guess that's a message as well. If you find yourself in Slovenia, then genuine
Let it all
hospitality
out.
and friendliness, embrace it.
Okay, yeah, that's the story that you said. That's a perfect example of just, don't go in a place and just stay close to yourself and just take a picture. I know people that travel to new locations and then they go to eat in McDonald's. I mean, no matter how much I speak to them, I just cannot change their mind. Like, oh no, like I prefer I gave up because I give walking tours in London, and then there was this lady from China, and we were walking about hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm like, okay, let's have lunch. So we go inside. And I'm like, food here. Like, what can I show her? Fish and chips. Let's eat fish and chips. We sit down in the pub, and I was like, okay. And she's like, what they have here? I said, don't worry, I'm gonna order. So I order, and it comes to her, and I'm like, yeah, it's strange, okay. I said, okay, just try it. Okay, let me put a bit of vinegar and salt here. Try that. She ate the fries. She ate the fries, and I was like, come on, eat some fish. Okay, let me try it. Yeah, okay, not bad. But she didn't finish the fish. And it's blown my mind how many people are just looking forward when they just need to open up their mindset a bit, and they're just gonna see way more things. But I always try to make people expand their mind.
That did backfire on us once when we were in Haskovo in Bulgaria, because the guy who we were staying with, the guy who owned the properties that we were living in, took us to like a little sort of shack place, which has got plastic tables, and he said, right, I'm going to order you all the things that you've got to try in Bulgaria. So
all the locals eat.
Yeah,
right.
and we had some great stuff. And then he brought out this pile of, must have been about 6,500 chicken hearts. It felt like, anyway. It wasn't. It was about a pile about this big of chicken hearts. And we were like, well, okay, yeah, we'll give it a go. And we tried, and we were like, oh my God, don't like this at all. But then we said to him, he said, do you like them? And we kind of went, oh, yeah, they're nice. He went, oh, it's good. I don't like them. You can have them all. And I was like, oh, no. So we had to work our way through about 25 chicken hearts.
Yeah, he laughed a lot. I think he got that by the end, that we were just being polite.
I mean, yeah. Well, maybe be honest next time. they won't take it bad if they if you don't like it. But I think trying is good, because if you don't like strawberries, or if you like strawberries, how you will know that you like strawberries? You need to try strawberries. You just need to taste them. Okay, that was great, actually. Do you have any? You told me at the beginning, I think I sensed that you have some curious facts that you would like to share. Is that true?
But Slovenia, I think the curious fact, and I think because I know there's lots of people in the UK that are doing pub quizzes virtually every all the time minute, and I think that would be a really good question, like where in the world is the oldest grapevine? And I'm not sure many people would say Maribor, Slovenia.
No,
not a chance.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is that people seem, because Slovenia and Slovakia sound quite similar, then in their minds a lot of people put them together. And just to say they're so different countries, such a different people, that I suppose it's I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think when you say Slovenia or Slovakia, they go, oh, it's the same thing. Or sometimes they say Slovenia and they think, oh, well, that sounds a bit weird. I wouldn't want to go there. And it's like, no, just you've got to go to these Baltic. Well, you haven't got to, but I think you should go to these Baltic countries, because it just opens your mind to just how beautiful these places are and how amazing the people are.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what is the second biggest city in Slovakia?
Slovakia.
Oh, that is a good question.
Oh,
We
you so
actually
you
we,
you
we
didn't go there?
do you
We
know we
did.
did, but we have friends in Bratislava, so we kind of had to
I
go to
see.
Bratislava, which is also a really cool city.
But we stayed in a place called Devon, which is about
Oh, yeah.
6 miles out of. It's right. In fact, the old border, I think, between, was it Czech Republic and Slovakia,
Yeah.
was the river by our house, so you could walk past it.
No, between Austria and Slovakia.
Oh, was it Austria and Slovakia? Sorry,
Yeah.
Austria and Czechoslovakia, the old Czechoslovakia, because there's
Yeah.
some horrible history about 100 years ago or 50 years ago, when people tried to escape Czechoslovakia, but that was literally right next to us. So we were, I suppose, not
Further
second
out.
city, but then there's Slovakia is so small that I don't know whether the second.
We will go.
Yes.
And we will tell you.
And we'll come back on the podcast and we'll tell you about the second city in Slovakia.
Okay, fair point. Fair point. We're gonna talk about Slovakia next with you. Okay. Anything else do you think we have missed, or anything else you want to add about Slovenia, about yourself, or about traveling in general?
I don't think so. I think the only thing I'd kind of say about Slovenia, if you do decide to go, it's a very small country, so it's very easy to get around, hire a car. Maribor is a great base, but Ljubljana is also a really cool city. That's the capital. Lake Bled is probably the most famous image people know of Slovenia, which is the lake with the island in the middle with a castle on top. And then there's the coast of Slovenia as well, which is very much got a feel of kind of Italy or Istria and Croatia. It's a really diverse country, so I think if you go, get a car, drive around.
Yeah, and if you're a bit more fit than us, then there's lots of cyclists around Slovenia.
Yeah, you could have a cycling holiday, I
Yeah,
guess.
cycling holiday,
Why not?
and
Cycling
there's caves.
holiday.
There's caves as well down in the south, and it's just
Caves. Okay, mountains. Are there any mountains?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's mountains. I don't know about skiing. I don't know whether they do. Is it cold enough?
I don't know. I guess being next to Austria as well, whether
Yeah,
there's.
maybe.
But it's such, for a small country, it's so diverse. I think that's probably what people might not know about Slovenia as well.
And then if you get the chance to go down, if you're going down the south, then cross the border to Istria in Croatia and go and spend some time in a place called Ravine, which is near Pula, because you get the most amazing truffles there, truffle oil, and some Istrian white wine, which is just amazing.
You could spend like a good bit of time in that region because you could drive from like Venice through to Slovenia and into Istria in about 5 hours. Like it's a really small part of the world where you can go to lots of different places very easily. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think especially if you want to kind of go to a few different places, and I know it's difficult now, kind of post-COVID world. But Slovenia is a good little place actually to base yourself for a mini European road trip.
Definitely. We love it.
Is it the euro there? You can use the euro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but do you need to convert into national currency, or with euro you're okay?
No, sorry. I was going to say the euro. It's the euro there, isn't it?
Yeah, their currency is the euro.
Currency is the euro. The only thing you have to be aware of if you're driving is that you need a vignette, which is a word we'd never heard of until we got a €500 fine for not having a vignette. So if you are driving into
€500, fine.
yeah, we got it reduced down to 250 for paying on the
Paid it
spot.
on the spot, yeah.
But so if you're driving into Slovenia, get a vignette before you get there, because
It's road tax basically.
Yes.
If anyone's not heard of it,
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
because we hadn't, obviously.
Yes. So we kept seeing these signs for vignette coming through Italy. We're like, what the hell's a vignette? Oh, I don't even know what that word is. Maybe it means kebab or something in Slovenian. And then we found out at the border when a chubby policeman stopped us and lifted €250 off us.
Yeah.
So that happened on the border when you were entering Slovenia from Italy.
Yeah, from Italy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in Bulgaria is the same. So if you are in the city, you're okay without that. But when you travel in between cities, you need that. And then you need to put it in the windshield. So how this happen? You go on the border and the police guys. So basically you need to buy it before usually in Bulgaria it's
For-
from gas stations. I suppose it's the same thing.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is actually a place on the border as well, isn't there, that sells them.
Yeah, I think that, but we
The
didn't
minute
risk
you
that.
drive out of kind of border control, isn't
But
it?
yeah, but it's certainly on the Italian border, they stand there with their binoculars and they're looking to see if you've got a vignette. And if you haven't, literally like you're 2 feet into Slovenia and they pull you over and fine you. So there probably is. I mean, on that border, I don't remember seeing a shop, but there might have been. But certainly, all these petrol stations going up to it, as you say, up to the border in Austria, Italy, Croatia, will all have vignettes going into.
But they're so on it because we drove down a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? So we drove from Lithuania down south through into Slovenia, from Austria, and again it was like we thought it was COVID, so we had all of our paperwork with us and our negative tests, and expecting to get stopped, and the only thing they stopped us for was to check that we had a vignette, and it was like, dude, we've got a vignette, it's fine. But yeah, crazy.
So how did you reduce this fine? Is it because you paid on the spot? That's why it got reduced?
Yeah, he took us to a van with a card machine and was like, if you pay now. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So probably the biggest
Expensive
lesson is
Yeah.
get a vignette. All right.
Get a vignette.
All right, cool. Anything else, guys, you would like to add?
No, just thank you for inviting us.
Yeah,
We
thank you for having
love
us.
talking about this. As
We've
you can
never
tell.
been podcast guests before.
No.
Oh, first thing
First
for
podcast
everything.
guest.
And I never and I never had a talk with two people at the same time on the podcast. So first time for me as well. We share this moment, first timers. Well, perfect. Thanks so much. As you travel a lot, I would actually love to have you in a few other episodes later on and talk about something else. Maybe Slovakia.
Yes.
Maybe.
Or maybe some other place before that, because I don't know when you're going to visit Slovakia. But it was a huge pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that for me. And I wish you a fantastic day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pavel.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Really nice.